2025, let's hit our theme song of our player rankings here. The top 10 25 player rankings, and we're going to kick things off with the starting pitchers. And Tom was going through all the great things about YouTube, and one of those things that that's going to be great is we are going to be revealing our top 10 player rankings for all the positions in Major League Baseball, with the exception of one. One is special because of the depth in outfield. Outfield is going to be its own thing. It's going to be top 30, and that's going to be down the line after we get through all the top 10s. But it is February 10th, so of course we got to start with the top 10 on February 10th. That would only make sense. But we're going to start on the hill. Not Rich Hill, not Tim Hill, but just the mound. It's starting pitcher. So I'm going to kick things off with our first three that we're going to fill up this list with. And our first three guys at our number 10 position, we were mentioning how the Red Sox were looking good on paper. Well, it starts with a good guy at the top of that rotation, and that is Garrett Crochet. Garrett Crochet making his debut on the top 10 list, and after the year he had, and I'll say personally, I didn't have Garrett in my own top 10. I think Garrett needs another year to kind of get there, but Garrett, 3.58 ERA, 209 strikeouts, can't deny the amount of Ks he had, 146 innings pitched in his first full season as a starting pitcher. He's been a back-end reliever for the White Sox for a good amount of his, actually all of his career, the 3 years that is in Chicago. He takes his talent over to Boston after a big trade. So Garrett Crochet kicks off our list at number 10. At number 9, another pitcher that has a new home this offseason, had a new home this offseason. That's Blake Snell. Blake Snell was one of the last people to sign, and he was like, yo, screw that. I ain't waiting for this shit anymore. I'm going to be the first one to sign this year, and he signed with the Dodgers. And, of course, he took the deferrals. He goes at number 9. Blake Snell, only a year or so removed from the Cy Young year that he had in 2023, where he had a 2.25 ERA. It was not a good start for Snell in 2024, but he leveled out, ended up with a 3.12 ERA, struck out 145 batters in 20 starts. So another solid year for Snell, who is going to be at the top of the Dodgers rotation this year. And the number 8 spot, and dropping from number 5 a year ago, is Garrett Cole. I'm probably going to get some flack from a lot of the Yankee faithful who probably believe Garrett Cole belongs more closer to the top 5. I tried to make that case for him, but Garrett Cole, he is coming off a year where he started off injured, ended up with a decent line, definitely not pales in comparison to Cy Young year in 2023. Ended up with a 3.41 ERA, 99 Ks in 17 games started. So Garrett Cole at our number 8 position. Now, Tom, I'm sure we want to get a little bit more into Garrett Cole. Do you think we adequately scored Garrett here in our rankings?
I actually had Garrett a little lower. I had Garrett where Garrett is. I had Garrett Cole in the 10th spot just because, listen, he is coming off the injury. I know at that last game of the year, although that game did not go well for the Yankees, he looked very good. There were some ups and some downs in his return. So we'll see how he bounces back. Would I be surprised if Garrett Cole won the Cy Young this year? No, I wouldn't be, but you just don't know. And there's a lot of very talented younger pitchers ahead of him that I think could have a better chance to have a better year than Cole. I think Cole could be a little bit of a wild card this year.
Yeah, Joe, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I agree. I think I had Garrett Cole in the 8 spot. So I think that's about right for him. Again, guy, when he's at his top of his game, can be a top 3 pitcher in baseball. He could even be the best pitcher in baseball. But, we don't know 100% what we're getting from him coming into this year. And I just think, there's a couple other names once we pop them up that you would take over him. And my focus right now here on this list is Garrett Crochet. I had him in my top 10. Here's the thing. When you take a guy who's been sitting in the 7th circle of hell in terms of baseball, you bring him out and you give him purpose for the first time in his career, that guy is set up to be successful. I think Crochet's got the stuff. He's got the makeup. And now he's got the motivation going to a team that's going to look to contend for a division title. So I love Crochet in the spot. I think he's got an immense amount of talent. I think he's going in for a very, very big year and a very big now that he's out of the prison that is the Chicago White Sox. I think he's in for a good year.
Free Luis Robert.
Yeah, and Blake Snell, Dodgers. I mean, he's a Cy Young candidate on that team. He's going to get a lot of wins. We'll see what happens. But Blake Snell, welcome to the top 10 this year.
All right, Joe, let's get into the next couple here on our list. We're up to 7 and 6. So Joe, take it away.
Yeah. So number 7, we have Logan Gilbert, who I believe was in the 7th spot last year. Is that how that works?
No, he was off the list. So because you guys actually we added a change to it. So he was an NA on this list. Yes, correct.
Listen, Logan Gilbert, the young ace for the Seattle Mariners, 9-12 last year, which wasn't a fair record for him. Led the league with 208 innings, has pitched 185 innings each of the last 3 years, led the league in whip, which is walks and hits per innings pitched, well, 0.88 whip, which is unbelievably phenomenal. 220 strikeouts to 37 walks, an absolute control artist. I love Logan Gilbert. He's the modern day version of a workhorse at this point. He's been consistent ever since he got into a Seattle uniform. So I love Logan Gilbert here because of the workload he's done the last 3 years. He's been increasing the amount he pitches, and he's a great control pitcher. Maybe not the best, maybe not even the best stuff in that rotation. You might want George Kirby over him in terms of pure stuff. But as far as the makeup of the pitcher, I love Logan Gilbert. Number 6 here, Framber Valdez of the Houston Astros. Listen, we've seen Framber in many games. Last year, 15-7, 2.91 ERA in 28 starts, 176 innings. I know he was hurt to begin the year. It kind of looked like he was going to have an up and down year, but he's just one of these guys who's a quality start machine. Every time he goes out, he pitches a quality start. He's been fantastic. He owns a 3.3 ERA over his career. He's the workhorse. He's the ace for Houston. He's pitched at least 175 innings each of the last 3 seasons. To me, he's one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. So Framber Valdez takes the number 6 spot.
And he's a free agent, so he'll be the number 5 starter on the Dodgers next year.
Yeah, be coming out of the pen.
Sadly,
after the Patriots in 2042.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, do you want to pick on either Valdez or Gilbert here?
No, not particularly. They're both very good.
Instead of picking on those two guys, how about you rattle off our next 3 here? We're going down from 5 to 3.
Let's do it. And at number 5 here, we have our that wasn't it. Number 5 here, we have our oldest entry on the list. I'm pretty sure Chris Sale is older than Garrett Cole. Don't fact check me on that. The NL Cy Young Award winner with one of the better comeback and just come out of nowhere seasons we've seen in a long time in baseball last year. He was great last year. Can he hold up? That's going to be the question, but we are showing him his respect having him in the 5 slot. Now we're moving. Again, don't fact check him here. Pretty sure Paul Skeens is the youngest guy on this list. Rookie of the year last year, but it's surprising if he wasn't the youngest guy on the list. Again, rookie of the year, phenomenal with the stuff that he has. Big question with him is going to be is how does he improve that workload? Yes, he did have a sub-2 ERA last year, but he only pitched 133 innings. What does that number get to? Does he get over 150? Does he get further than that? That's going to be the question on Skeens because obviously has as much talent as just about anyone on this list. And then finally we go to number 3. We have the newest Arizona Diamondback, Corbin Burns. After 2 really good years, or just 1 really good year in Baltimore, it felt like 2 years. Again, don't fact check me on this stuff. I don't know what I'm talking about. A sub-3 ERA last year. You would expect that might go up. I mean, granted, because Arizona can be very hitter friendly, and he's going to have to go against that Dodger lineup and what's going on in San Diego as well. but he's out there in Arizona, away from the AL, and he is taking our number 3 spot on the list.
Yeah, I think of these guys too. I mean, how about the young ace Paul Skeens making it all the way up to the guy didn't pitch an inning when we did this top 10 last year. Now he's all the way up to number 4. Just goes to show the amount of stuff he's got.
I think Skeens at 4 is a little premature. He had a phenomenal year. He's going to be a great pitcher. I do think it's a little premature. But listen, Chris Sale's an interesting character, an interesting pitcher. You never know if he's going to be healthy. You never know if he's going to take his next start. He didn't at the end of the year. He put the Braves in a very tough spot heading into the playoffs, not able to pitch. So it's a good question on whether or not he is, when he is healthy, the best pitcher in baseball. I think that's a fair question. I think the health is always a concern with him. Listen, he's a guy, if you look at his career and how phenomenal he's been when he's been healthy, I mean, he's going to have an interesting case, a Hall of Fame discussion at the end of his career. So you hope he gets a couple more healthy seasons in there. But he has quite the resume, and now a Cy Young to show for it. So he's a fascinating pitcher.
Mm-hmm. And with Corbin Burnes at number 3, the newest ace of the Diamondbacks, I mean, they have a formidable top of their rotation. I actually was trying to get a case to have both Burnes and Gallen in the top, and I know Gallen had a little bit of a slip in 2024, but
he had
still
some votes.
But you still got to give Gallen a little bit of cred there. I mean, you do make a point on Skeens, Joe, with Skeens being in the top 5. He belongs in the top 10. I think top 5 was a little bit of a stretch, but Skeens is going to be a dominant pitcher for years to come, God willing. So we are from 10 to 3, so that means it's time to get into our top 2. But this was interesting, Corey Fab. So what happened here with our top 2?
All right, so to give a little bit of a background, when we go ahead, we each do our rankings individually, and then we tally it up, and we find ways to balance the curve a bit for guys who got some votes but not enough. But when you look at the top 2, they both were tied with 2 first-place votes and 2 second-place votes. So they were an even 1.5 ranking. So splitting the difference here, we'll look at our first player in the top 2. And that is Mr. Tariq Skubal, last year's AL Triple Crown winner. I mean, his numbers, you look at last season, off the charts. I mean, he pitched a full season, 31 games, 2.53 ERA. I mean, he Triple Crown guy. This guy was absolutely awesome. Tied for number 1. Again, you could make the case he is number 1. He was the best pitcher last year, but part of it also is we're not predicting who was the best pitcher last year. We're predicting who we think is going to be the best pitcher this year. So let's see if Tariq could, keep up that momentum going into this year. He definitely has got the stuff to do it. But the other guy he shares their spot with has a consistent track record for being a top-tier pitcher over the last several years, and that is the Phillies ace, Zach Wheeler. You actually look at their numbers, and while Skubal was better across the board, Wheeler was right up there with them. I mean, we're talking about ERA was fractions of a fraction behind. I think he had he was actually right around the same spot with K's too. A couple less wins, although wins itself isn't as valuable as it used to be. Quality starts is the better judgment. But their numbers were very comparable.
And considering Skubal's doing it at AAA as opposed to Wheeler being in the majors is a big difference.
Correct. I mean, you look at the National League. National League's absolutely stacked, and the AL Central, despite having 3 playoff teams, is such a bad, you would think, a bad division. So both these players, listen, they ended up tying, again, 1.5 average between the 2 of them. It really just comes down to, do you want the hot young hand who had the really nice year?
Gotta love the hot young
top-tier pitcher who, who's got the track record. So I don't think you could really go wrong either way here.
I was more on the latter. I had Zach Wheeler in the 1 spot and Skubal in the 2 spot. Skubal was so dominant in last year that if we were just doing it, for me personally, and I didn't tell anybody how they were going to do their top 10s. For me personally, I needed to see a little bit of a track record over the last couple of years with a mix of what the projections are looking like. Zach Wheeler's consistency for me won the number one spot, despite not having the Medal of a Cy Young award. He's been a top 3 finalist multiple years, but just hasn't won that achievement. Scuba was incredible. So having these two guys tied at number one, not the worst thing in the world, but luckily for us, is the only time out of our top 10s that we have a tie at the number one position. It ends with Scuba and Wheeler there. Joe, do you have any comments?
No, I mean, listen, they're phenomenal pitchers. We saw Zach Wheeler firsthand throw up a donut against the Mets in a playoff game, only for him to come out and the bullpen proceed to blow it. So he got the treatment he was used to when he was with the Mets on the Phillies for a change. And then Scuba again. I mean, Scuba pitched a phenomenal game in the postseason as well, and I believe his team lost 1-0 in a game that he went at least 8 innings in. So I think these guys are right now the top pitchers in baseball. I think there's a drop off between them and Burns and Skeens and Sale. And I know Sale won the Cy Young last year, but the health concerns are there for me. So if I'm starting a team, I'm probably taking Scooble just because of his age. But if I one game with my life on the line on this list, who I want to pitch this game, it might be Zach Wheeler.
There you go. And there you have it. Our top 10 starting pitchers entering the 2025 season. And we have 8 more player rankings coming about. We have all the infield positions. We have a top 30 outfield list at the end of all these rankings, which we're going to be revealing in batches on YouTube.